Now, to the story now, Senzo Meyiwa's close friend is being accused of betraying the soccer star to make a quick buck. Tumelo Madlala was being cross-examined in the Bafana captain's murder trial yesterday. He was paid to appear in a Netflix documentary about the crime. For legal analysis ahead of court proceedings, we're now joined by legal expert Mpumelelo Zikalala. Mpumelelo, good morning and thank you very much for your time. So a lot has been made of the witnesses' continued evasiveness and answering questions with questions. What would be the impact of this witness's conduct on the state's case?
Good morning to you and also to your viewers and listeners. It goes directly to the credibility of the witness in terms of saying, if you are so evasive in answering these particular questions, how do we even know? How can you assure us that what you are telling us is actually the truth? What we want, as a person who was in that room on that fateful night, is for you to tell us the sequence of events, tell us the intimate details of what exactly occurred. Most importantly for the state, link the 5 accused to the individuals that were there on the day, even by their identity and the manner in which they carried themselves. And then we can be sure that the people who are in the accused box are really the perpetrators and the individuals that should be punished for the crime that has been committed. However, if you are going to be evasive, if you are going to answer questions with questions and show that you're actually fighting these particular questions and you're not really giving the responses which are required, which is either I know what happened, this is a sequence of events, I don't know what happened, then the court it has no option to draw the inference of saying, in fact, you are lying, you are evasive, and your evidence should not be relied on because you are not a credible witness.
Because on just the Netflix question, he was asked how much he was paid. He did not remember. Some could easily say that in this instance, if Tumelo cannot remember specifics of a number of things, how then would he remember the facial features of an individual he says was the intruder? Would that not be a legitimate question?
Not entirely. Let's remember what the court is actually looking for is the intimate details of what happened on that night. So if you're going to forget other things which have taken place in other spaces, it does not really matter to this court because the instances in which you're going to remember certain sequence of events that happened in your life will depend on the significance of those events. Now, an event such as the passing on or the murder of your friend should be something which should be imprinted in your mind and should stay there regardless the number of years that have occurred or that have lapsed since the day of the incident. So for me, it was more a question of saying, what the advocate was trying to do was trying to say, you are so evasive in your questions and you don't want to disclose certain information, that you don't even want to tell us how much you've been paid by the Netflix creators, for example. So we can't rely on you as a witness because you are simply selecting which answers you are going to answer and which questions you are going to answer and what type of what questions or what answers are going to be made up. So we can't trust your evidence at the end of the day that is going to be truthful because you are more protecting yourselves rather than allowing the court to delve down to the truth as to what happened on that particular day. So that is what they were trying to do yesterday in terms of working on his credibility. How credible are you? Can you really trust the evidence that you are supposed to give? And if we can, then you can continue with the sequence of events and maybe to assist the court in determining what exactly happened on that day and whether the individuals which are being referred to as the accused are the real individuals that should be punished for this particular crime.
What did you make of the line of questioning around money, perhaps starting with just the disclosure of his qualifications, when last he got paid, why, if he had gotten his salary, he would then go on to accept the money from Senzo to come to Johannesburg, all of that. Did you get perhaps an idea that they're leading us to a person who possibly would do anything for money in general, perhaps even being paid to perhaps lied about what happened on the day? Is that where it's going?
Definitely. And a person who can be easily persuaded to go into a witness stand and provide evidence which is going to aid the person that has brought them up there or that has called upon them to come and give evidence in this case, which is the state. So the perception may be you are so influenced by money to such an extent that you have chosen to stay away from the truth of this particular matter. And the only thing that you are interested in is that you want to protect your integrity, you want to protect yourself as a supposedly friend of the now deceased Mr. Senzo Meyiwa, and yet you do not even disclose the truthful facts of what happened on that particular day. Be truthful, which is what is required by the court. If there are certain things that didn't occur, especially with the identification of the accused, state so don't try and create an impression that you know something when you don't know anything. Because all that is going to be drawn at the end of the day that you are a liar and your evidence can then not be relied on. It was even evident when he, on 2 separate days, firstly he says, yes, I know the individual, accused number 2 was there, and then on another day he says, I'm denying it, I can't really remember whether that particular person was there or not. It speaks directly to the credibility, ability to remember, and the instances and the weight that should be afforded to the court, by the court, to his evidence, and which in this case, provided the NPA can then come back and say, in re-examination, let's try and save the evidence that you've provided. He's not really a witness that can be relied upon.
And then the exchanges between Mr. Tobane and the judge at this point, much has been made of this even on social media. It seems to be degenerating. Is this the normal conduct that one should expect in a court of law where there's just back and forth? One can expect that level of debating, if we can call it that.
Not at all. Even if there's a level of debate, even if there's a level of disagreements or anything which is seems to be confrontational, respect should be maintained at all times. Which is why you'd find certain words being used at court, such as my learned friend in the honorable court, the witness, or the accused. You do not ever refer to the personality or attack the person which is behind that particular role. I think on that particular point yesterday, both the legal practitioner, in fact, the legal practitioner actually lost it and conducted himself in a manner which is unbecoming of a legal practitioner. The code of conduct is very clear as to how the exchanges in court would be. Nonetheless, if you feel that you've been hard done in any of the proceedings which are taking place in court, there are ways and procedures of addressing that. There are ways and procedures of making sure that certain points that you want to raise later, if you do go on appeal and insert it into the record, there are ways of doing that with the utmost respect that can be afforded to the court, and there's no need at all for those blows of exchanges to then take place in the manner in which they took place yesterday.